This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, health, tax, professional advice. We're not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the management. This podcast may contain adult themes, so parental discretion is advised. So welcome, Modern Titus to women. Welcome, Titus to friends. Just welcome. So today, we have a very exciting guest, a very inspiring guest. His name is John Jr Rennie, and we welcome him this evening to our show, and we're honored to have him speaking with us. He's the visionary founder of BrushFires Ministry and author of the powerful new book, Sparks Turn Into BrushFires. JR's story is one of faith, resilience, and divine guidance, packed with incredible adventures and profound lessons that will ignite your spirit. So welcome, welcome, John.
Well, Lorna, thank you for that glowing recommendation. I hope I live up to your setup there. Thank you for.
I know you will. I'm positive.
Okay.
So would you mind giving the listeners a background, a brief background about you? Because some of them might not have read the book. So
Sure. So basically, the book covers my entire life as far as my faith walk, starting at 12 years old and so forth. But for the short and sweet version of it, I'm a born-again son of the Most High God. Been married to my wife. This August will be 46 years. We have 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and in 1987, I started a business that has been going for nearly 40 years now that developed business software for distribution manufacturing companies.
awesome. So what was the turning point that led you to truly hear God's voice in your life? What happened?
I would say that probably the most important first voice as far as hearing him was a dream that he gave me in 1987. And again, for those of you that are interested, this is all documented in the book, and the book is completely free.
Yes,
So you're welcome to register online and get it. But in 1987, I had a dream. Our oldest son was crying, and I went into his room. He was about 3 years old, fell asleep in his bed, and he and I were floating in darkness, and all of a sudden a bright light shone between the two of us, and we started drifting apart. And I knew instinctively that he was going to get hurt, but I couldn't stop him. I couldn't get to him. I woke up and I had 2 clear messages. First of all, the God of creation just gave you a warning about your son. And the other one was, get your family to church. That was it. Now, I say that, but Lorna, I'll tell you, I woke up from that dream just shaking and questioning my sanity, and just it really it shook me to my core. And but I was obedient to it, and we got our family to church. Now, the interesting thing about it, that wasn't the solution, just going to church. By going to church, I met the people that would teach me what it was going to be like when you have a child in their teens that starts to go in the wrong direction, what to do as far as prayer and preparation, what resources were available as far as Christian education. Others were teaching us about homeschooling, which we wound up doing for our son, and we pulled him out of junior high, and my wife homeschooled him for a year and a half before he got his life back under control. You see, in 5th grade, because of the success of our software company and the new neighborhoods we moved into, our son was introduced to drugs, alcohol, and pornography. And this was back in the 90s. So at least these things weren't going to kill him immediately like some of it can today. Right. But the warning that God gave me in 1987 was for me to do the work then that would give us the resources so that we could help our son. So that would be the first time that God really spoke to me that I can remember.
Hmm. So, how did the process of writing Sparks Turn Into Bushfire deepen your faith or your perspective of God's guidance? How did it deepen it?
So what it taught me was that God has been speaking to me all through my life. And when you sit down and you put all these things together, and so he's talked to me through dreams. I've had 3 significant dreams from God. He has talked to me through words of knowledge. Prophetic people have a calling. They will say something to you that is directly from God. He has talked to me through my own words of knowledge about other people and things that I should know. My poetry, my short stories, the articles that I've written, inspiration. All these are conduits, God's word, by reading the Bible. By sitting down and putting all these together in one book, it showed me the faithfulness of God, the provision of God, and why He is so trustworthy for me to continue uh, trusting Him for the rest of my life.
I know you spoke about one couple occasions where uh God spoke to you, but can you describe the most surprising other ways that God has ever spoken to you other than what you or any recent ones? How about that?
I would say one of the ones that surprised me the most was through my own writings. In 2016, I was in a place where I needed to. God was forcing me to change. He was shifting me into a new season. He was taking me out of the corporate world and he was placing me in ministry, which was not what I thought was a really good fit for me, but God knows best. And I was writing short stories and poems. A lot of them had to do with just what I was feeling, or I'd get an inspiration and then I would write the story and I'd start the story, learn it, but I wouldn't know how it was going to end until it ended, or going, oh, well, it's a cool story. When I look back on these stories now, I can hear God saying, I was with you. I was talking to you. I was showing you through the 3 guides story what I was going to do in your life. I was showing you in the snowflakes poem that I've got you. Don't worry about this. I've got you. You don't have to be concerned about where things are coming or how things are going to work out. I got you. That was one of the things that surprised me first, because in my writings, I thought, this is me. This is my intimate thoughts, and I was the one writing these things down. And what I realized was that no, God was leading that creativity, and He was using those words that I was writing to comfort me, and then ultimately to comfort others as we use them in ministry.
Wow. I want to backpedal a little bit and if you want to, if you care to elaborate on the transition from, you know, being in the corporate world and now, you know, having an income, um, being able to live in a affluent area and all of that. I know you're being told that you need to do ministry. How how did you, how did that transition go?
Yeah, not easy, not comfortably, not willingly. I was dragged into it.
Oh, kicking and screaming.
Yeah, in
Uh,
May of 2016, every opportunity to replace my family's income, I had a slam door. And these are things. I understand my skill set is very unique,
mm-hmm,
and it's necessary for businesses that are looking for software. And I had an experience in a training that very few people have. I thought, oh, no big deal. I'll start doing consulting of some sort. Every door got slammed in my face, not even a whiff of an opportunity. And in May of 2016, after wasting a lot of money on Google ads and Facebook ads, and just really being generally frustrated, I said out loud, all right, God, I know you're behind this. What do you want?
mm-hmm,
Because in the past, He's always provided a way for our family. I just need to be faithful and work it and so
right.
forth. And none of that was happening. So that's when I first got the glimpse that this was different, that He wanted me to do something else. I still didn't know what it was. If He told me it was ministry, I probably would have been like Jonah and run in the opposite direction. Let them
Yes,
burn.
true.
I don't want to deal with those people.
Yeah, yeah,
You know how
yeah, true.
frustrating Christians are, God. I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, yeah. And Francis and Jonah thought, and Jonah knew God's personality.
Yeah.
God is going to forgive them, and they're
Yeah.
not going to think I'm a liar. Guess what?
Yeah, well, it was me. It was just a frustrating dealing with ministry people. So that was hard. But by the end of 2016, he led me into training for psychometric assessments, which opened my eye to the need that the church has for this training to understand what God created you to do.
Hmm.
There's no training going on in church now for a person to discover what specifically God created you to do. And that's the burden, that's the task that God's placed on our ministry's shoulders, is to help the church figure out what the individual church member is supposed to be doing and then get them to do it. And that's what BrushFires Ministry is all about. And that's what we've been trying to do ever since 2017.
Okay. I just spoke about your journey. I'm sure other persons have are traveling the same road that you've been through already, where you know that God has given you something to do, but you're not quite sure, but there's something for you to do, but you don't know what the something is. So how do you encourage others to stay faithful during this spiritual silence, spiritual duration of silence? How do you encourage them?
So here's the thing: God's not as silent as we think He is. We just pick and choose when we want to hear Him. So God doesn't like to repeat Himself. So if He told you to do something, do that. See, in fact, I just heard this again this morning, and it's so true. God is more concerned about obedience than He is sacrifice. He
Yes.
doesn't care so much how much money you give, or all the good things you do and all the bad things you don't do.
Mhm.
What He really cares about is when He says, daughter, do this, son,
Right.
do this, and do you obey? He's more interested in obedience than He is interested in our sacrifices. So the very first thing is like He wanted me to take this training class, which I did, and I saw value in it immediately. And a byproduct of that is to produce what's called a purpose statement. And my purpose statement reads like this: I must strategically lead a gifted team to embrace the power of their God given design for long term positive results.
Hmm.
I was contemplating that purpose statement a year after I was frustrated with God, yelling at Him, going, "What do you want?" Um, I was contemplating that purpose statement, and I go, well, this is for the church. I know it's for the church. And if my purpose statement is to build and lead a team to embrace the power of the God given design, all right, I got these assessments, but if it's for the church, how do I teach this in the church? Because the assessments are agnostic, they're just questions.
Right.
And at that point in time, it was like, I have to write the curriculum. Now, understand, I don't put all this together at the time because you have to look back on life. But I had been writing solidly for about a year and a half, just out of a cathartic need to deal with my emotions and my loss of identity and this frustration with God and so forth. I've been writing poetry and short stories and articles and all kinds of inspirational things. But I'd never written curriculum for the church. But as soon as I made that mental agreement, Lorna, to say that, yes, I'm going to write the curriculum for the BrushFires Ministry, as soon as I said that, that's when God said, and you're going to call it BrushFires. See, I didn't have a
Wow.
name. I didn't have the name for the ministry. I didn't have, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to do this thing based upon my purpose statement. I know it was in my head first. I know I was the very first person to speak it out, but I can't take credit for it because it was gifted to me. It was like, this is what you're going to call it. And it was years later when I finally figured out what it meant. You see, our ministry is to ignite the fire that is waiting to be ignited in every born again child of the Most High God, for Him to accomplish His purposes through them in the unique way that they were gifted and created to operate. And when they do what God created them to do, they start fires in other people's lives, who
Right.
then start fires in other people's lives. So the idea and the concept here is that by doing this ministry, we're starting fires for Christ in the lives of everyone in this world, ultimately, to be able to become who God created you to be. And so that's the ministry, and God's been pushing me in this direction now for some time.
Mm-hmm. On page 28 of your book, Sparks Turn Into BrushFire, you spoke about the abortion and about the impact it had on both of your life, your wife and yourself. Okay, as Christians, all of us have a past life before we became Christians, and in some cases, with some of the women that I speak to and all that, they have deep regret for doing something like abortion. Some of them are now married and they find themselves in a position that they're not able to conceive, and they have great guilt. So, would you like to speak on this and speak on the reflection of regrets of abortion and how someone who is carrying a similar burden can deal with it for me?
So my wife was she wasn't my wife at the time. My girlfriend was about 15 or 16 at that time. I was 18, 19, and she got pregnant. The only way back then that you could actually know if you were pregnant or not was to go to a clinic and get a pregnancy test. You didn't actually have that in the 90s, where you could just actually 80s, where you could just show up and buy something at the drugstore. So we went to this clinic and they said, yes, you're pregnant. And then when do you want to schedule your abortion? There was no consultation. There was no discussion. There was nothing. It was like, when do you want to schedule your abortion? And they approached it from a very clinical kind of, oh, this is no big deal, just, whatever type of approach. And we trusted them. People of our generation, Lorna, you and I, we grew up in an area where we could trust the government, we could trust the police, we could trust the doctors and so forth. We trusted them.
Yes.
So we scheduled the appointment. My wife was not saved. I was backslidden. I was saved at 12, but 3-4 years later was not walking with God in any real way. And so we did what they told us to do. I dropped and understand, only my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and myself knew about this. That was it. Okay. Neither one of us were in church. So schedule this. She goes and has the abortion. I pick her up, take her back to my place for for her to rest up a little bit. And I could just tell she was there was something in her that had been changed. Something deeply, deeply hurt her. We didn't really talk about it. We didn't have anybody. We didn't go to anybody to talk about it. A year later, when she got pregnant again, there was just one strong conviction that she had: I'm not having an abortion again. Deep in her soul, in her spirit, even though she was not a believer at that time, she knew it was wrong.
Right.
It convicted her. She knew that it was wrong. I knew from just observing how she was reacting, I knew something went wrong. So when she said, no, I'm not having an abortion, it was like, okay, we're going to get married. And so I was 20 at that time. She was 16, and we wound up getting married. Now, the thing that I want for people to understand that are saved, that have had this experience, your conscience knows you did something wrong. Your Father in heaven knows that you did something wrong. He's waiting to forgive you of that. My wife and I don't walk around in guilt. In fact, I've gone so far personally, I haven't told my wife this yet, I really think it was a little girl. I think that she was a little girl. And so because I think it's a little girl, I've named her Heather. And when I get in heaven,
Heather will be there.
When I get to heaven, she's going to be there.
There you go.
It's just going to say,
I forgive you.
I was been waiting to meet you, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for giving me a name.
There you go. There you go.
So forgiveness is the business of the Father.
Right.
If you are feeling condemnation, guilt, and shame, that is the enemy trying to hurt you and to drag you into the pit. Don't do that. You have every right as a daughter or son of the Most High God to go directly to the Father and say, Father, have you forgiven me? He's going to say yes. If you've asked for forgiveness, he's going to give it to you.
Right.
Then every time that voice goes in your head to condemn you, you rebuke the enemy. Say, not today, Satan. I am not going to be dragged into that pit with you. No, you deceived me. You created that situation that I agreed to do something that was wrong, but I am not going to be enslaved by that guilt and shame anymore. So I want your listeners to know that that freedom is waiting in Christ. And if you're not saved and you're feeling that way, get saved and get free from that enslavement, because the enemy will use it to destroy what's good in your life, and you
Right.
don't want that.
Right. Right. A lot of people, you know, consider themselves backslidden and just stay there because they figure that there's no hope anymore. God don't want me. He's gonna reject me. There's nothing. I'm ashamed. I don't want to go back. In front of God. It's like the prodigal son. Sometime we're like that. And it's when we reach rock bottom and eating with the pigs. They would
Yeah.
try to go back. So, what advice would you give those feeling backslidden?
So here's the thing: the prodigals, the story of the prodigal son is not about the son. It's not about the son, because we're all fallen. We've all created situations in our lives where we're ashamed of, and we don't. That's not what the story is about. It's about the dad that went out on his porch every day looking down the road for his son to return.
Father, looking
It's
for the
about the
son.
father.
Oh,
He's looking down that road every day. Is my son going to come back to me today? Is my son going to come back to me today? And when he did come back, he did not rebuke him. He did not condemn him. Condemnation, guilt, and shame is from the enemy. Your father does not talk to you that way. He talks to you through conviction. Conviction says you're going in the wrong way, son. Turn around. Return to me. I want to heal you. I want to put a ring on your finger. I want to put a robe on your shoulders. I want to restore you to who I created you to be. So, no, if you are hearing that condemnation because you've been backslidden and you've done bad things, guess what? We've all done bad things. I don't care who the person is. And it's not a degree of badness that gets you in heaven or out of heaven. We are all done enough bad things to keep us from going to heaven.
oh yes.
It's
Oh,
it's it's the sacrifice of Christ on our behalf that pays for all that, that allows us to be able to go back to dad and say, please forgive me. I want to do better. Bring the people into my life that will help me grow and to become the man or the woman you created me to be.
yes. I think we spoke about this a little bit in the first part. But how has God provision um in your life shape your view of His faithfulness? We know we have God, Jehovah Jireh,
Right.
a provider.
So one of the things about the success of the software company is that I've never really been much on to materialism. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have a nice car and got a nice house and things like that. But I saved a lot of the money that we had, and we made a couple of decent investments in real estate. And so the money that I've needed to start this ministry and to be able to, pay our bills was put aside. We actually had it available for us. Now, I think at some point in time, the ministry will be able to compensate me in a salary, and I can get royalties from my books and from all the hard work. But now I'm in a process. I am pursuing this in faith. I'm doing a work that has no guarantee of success right now. There's no financial guarantee that what we're doing. We charge a very small fee for people to go through our program, and virtually all that right now is going to just pay for the computer, software, online tools, pay for the books, and so forth. There's none of that's going to anybody in salaries or anything of that nature. Now, at some point in time, I believe that God is going to provide through that ministry, and we'll get compensated. But now's the time for me to stay and persevere in faith. So, because of how He's provided in the past, because we stored up money and didn't spend it all when we had those really fat years, we're able to now walk through this period of time with full expectation that God is going to say, all right, servant, you're worthy of your pay. And, and how that works out and when that works out, I'm still faithfully going forward since
Yeah.
2016.
Yeah. I always tell people the Lord always provides the lamb in the thicket. So we just keep on going on. Just be obedient and go through. So, what is the most important lesson you hope readers will take away from Sparks Turn Into BrushFires? What is the most important lesson you want readers to take away?
So, the underlining message of the book is that God's always trying to talk to his kids. He wants you to listen. There are a number of reasons why we don't listen. If we're in defiant disobedience to what we know is right, we don't want to hear anybody that's going to tell us that we're doing wrong. So we'll run away from God and we won't do and put ourselves in those positions. But at some point in time, he'll allow you to continue to run away until you get to a place where all of a sudden you're hurting and you're going, God, save me. Okay. So what is it? The Jelly Roll song? I only talk to God when I got a problem.
Right.
So that's exactly the way a lot of us have to live our life. We haven't experienced enough pain until we're willing to turn to the Father and ask him to help us. So when he does that, okay, then you start to listen. You start to listen. And what I want people to get is that he's been trying to talk to you all this time. He is the creator of your life. He literally created you for a purpose. The things that he wants to do through you are going to be the most fulfilling, satisfying things that you've ever done. They're going to change how you see yourself, how you see God, and how you see the rest of this world. But it requires you to be obedient to what he's asked you to do. So when he told me to take the psychometric assessments, and I said, Lord, this doesn't make any sense. I don't want to do it, and it's going to cost me this money. And he goes, I put enough money aside. You've got the money. You can go ahead and pay for it. All right, fine, but still doesn't make any sense. Do it anyway. But by doing it, I then was encouraged to then be able to look at, well, how can I bring this to the church? And by entertaining the idea of bringing it to the church, it was like, well, I guess I have to write the curriculum. Each one of these steps of obedience was required of me to get to the place that I am today. And that's how he is going to be with every one of us children. God's like a strict parent in many ways, not an abusive parent, but he doesn't like to repeat himself. So if he told you to go make peace with your mother, go make peace with your mother. If he tells you to go and forgive that guy that cheated you, go forgive him. He knows what he is doing, and he knows to unlock you from the chains and the prison that you've placed yourself in.
Yes. Yes, so true. So, we could go on and on and on. On and on. So, so as we wrap up this incredible episode, I want to leave you with a powerful invitation. If Jar's journey and, what you've heard today has sparked something in you, you know, don't let it stop here. Dive deeper into the inspiring pages of his book. Explore the amazing work happening at BrushFires Ministry, and let those stories ignite a fire within you to listen to God's voice in your own life. Could you tell our listeners how to get in touch with you and how to get the book? And I will get that information from you also and put in the notes for the podcast.
Absolutely. So if they go to brushfires-digital.com and they register as a new user, registration is free. So you register as a new user. Once you are on your welcome page under enrolled products, you will see 3 books. One is the one we just talked about, Sparks Turn Into BrushFires. We will also give you one of our assessments. We make the gifts of the Father, the spiritual gifts of the Father from Romans 6:12. We make that available to everybody that registers on our site. Then if you want to go through one of our packages, our monthly packages, I would recommend either the platinum or gold monthly package. That will allow you to get the workbook, the 11 assessments, the digital series to be able to watch and understand why discovering your purpose is important. And
Yeah.
ultimately, if you stick with it, you'll be able to get your 3-hour coaching session where we will produce a unique purpose statement for you too. That is a personal counseling session to help you understand yourself, how you impact this world, and how you can have the best impact for the kingdom by being obedient to your calling.
All right. So there we go, folks. So keep listening, keep growing, and keep spreading the fire. Let's go. Let's go change the world one spark at a time. There we go.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you.